Hey there everybody, Eric from Outer Limitless coming at you today with another video. Now in today's video we are going to look at the Sig P322. Now at this point there is no doubt in my mind this is not a new firearm to the market. I'm a little bit late to the show, but there are some reasons for that. First off, why the Sig P322? Well, I have a number of reasons why this was literally the perfect handgun for me. I have been waiting to get my hands on this for quite a while, but it was really the opportunity that came upon me that allowed me to truly, at this point, get my hands on this. And so at this point, I have put about 300 rounds through this. I have some impressions, but I'm not quite gonna share those with you just yet. Today's video, more of a first look, first impressions, general overview, which there's tons of videos out there, so you're not really going to get too much new, yet at the same time, I am still in the fairly new and reasonably novice perspective. So a little bit more sort of, novice perspective if you're somebody who's looking to get into firearms, or if you're somebody who's looking for a .22 handgun, this may be a good video for you. And so when we get back, we're gonna go through the details, but with that said, I have a whole bunch to do and a whole bunch to share with you. And if you're interested in seeing a little bit more about what I'm about to get into, do me a favor, stay tuned. And so the Sig P322. Now, just to premise this entire video by saying, fully clear, dropped out the magazine, safe and ready for this discussion. But why the Sig P322? Well, for me, there were a number of really valid reasons, and keeping in mind again the fact that I am fairly reasonably new to firearms. I mean, within 2 years of firearms ownership. Next is, well, I'm a reviewer, and there are some features on here which are going to help enhance my ability to perform reviews in the future. And then beyond that, well, 22, everybody knows, is cheap. The ability to have a fairly reasonable firearm that's good and comfortable in the hands, nicely featured, yet cheap. 22 for me, and I have really started to say, it's like a cheap date. You can get out, and for me, I generally shoot about 100 rounds. For me, I can get out of shooting about 100 rounds for like $8. That's a cheap date, and it's perfect. It does exactly what I need. A little bit of target practice. Maybe I'm trying something, testing something, having some fun. So for $8, you can't really go wrong. And next, my ability to enjoy handguns now, quite frankly, with my kids. My kids are getting a little bit older. They're really responsible. They've been around firearms for a little bit now. I've been allowing them to shoot some rifle, and I wanted them to get a little bit into handgun. So 22 is perfect. I can tell you already, I've had some time at the range with my oldest son. He's done fantastic with this 322. It's literally been about perfect. And so as we get into this, we're going to start with a quick comparison. Now, I have the Sig P365 XL as my everyday carry weapon. This has been absolutely awesome. I love it. Obviously, 9mm, absolutely fantastic. And the thing about the 322 is it shares a lot of the same DNA. Of course, it's a Sig. Of course, it's, going to be fairly similar, yet at the same time, much more similar between the 322 and the 365 than some other models. You can see as we take a look at it here, again, a lot of the same sort of general features, general DNA, but it's the handle and it's the trigger that are probably, in my opinion, the most similar. But what I can say is the 322 grip is fantastic. As you take a look at how it indexes in my hands, a real nice full purchase, nice and high up under the undercut and very comfortable. This does fill my hands out nicely and just has a good overall purchase with my large size hands. Now, obviously you can see my 365 has a Hogue grip on it, but as we take a look at the 365 XL, there is a lot less meat when you look at the bare grip here. So overall, similar stippling and overall geometry, yet the handle on the 322 is larger in a number of dimensions. Just grabbing the calipers real quick as I get this thing turned on. You can see here 1.786 inches in the depth versus 1.950 at the widest point on the 322. The 365, 1.028 on the thickness, 1.092 on the thickness on the 322. The other thing with the 365 is you'll notice it's a little bit cut out on the top of the grip under that undercut. Now on the 322, much more pronounced. That feels really good and indexes extremely well. And the nice thing is I do find that it allows me to sort of relax my grip with my lower fingers just a little bit, which is going to aid in overall trigger control when I squeeze. So that's a nice thing. It feels really good in the hands and it's nicely balanced. Now, overall, this is quite light. This is a very light firearm, which even though it is dimensionally smaller here, the 365 XL, I mean, granted, I have the hollow sun and a whole grip, but here 1 pound, 3.1 ounces. Versus the P322, well, that's not even a pound, 15.9 ounces. So this is very light in the hand, which aids in the overall control for the most part. Now, you could say, well, being forward weighted is going to help reduce muzzle flip, sure, but bottom line is you still have really good control because it is light, and I'm saying that especially when you're trying to get on target. The heavier something is, the more and more you're going to move around, so the fact that this is nice and light allows you to be locked in on your target in the first place. And like I said, I've already had my son, who's only 13, testing this thing out with me, and he did a fantastic job. I can tell you that might not have been the case with a heavier firearm. Now, I also have the BB version of a couple other models. So here, the Sig P320. So as you take a look here, the 322, a little more compact, of course. The handle, not quite as long. The actual slide is shorter and barrel are shorter than on the full size. There are, of course, multiple models of the 320, but my particular variant here, a little bit larger. But also, I don't know, there's just something sleek and kind of sexy about the shape of this. I like the way this looks. I think it's a really just good looking handgun, beautifully just shaped, and I love the flat trigger. Everything about this just really working. I like it quite a bit. Of course, you have a slightly different design with the beaver tail. You can see this one's kind of peeked out a little bit, where this one is actually a little bit longer, but it's straight up and flat on the back. So, I mean, that's a little bit deceptive when you look at this and go, well, it doesn't have too much of a beaver tail. No. It's got a nice big beaver tail, and you can get nice and high up on there, nice and comfortable, and in combination with that sort of cutout on the grip and the nice undercut underneath the guard, very nice. So, generally speaking, really a nice shaped and nicely sized firearm. And comparing it now against the BB version of the standard P365. So, I mean, again, you can see similar DNA, very similar overall, but of course the 322, you see where that stacks up, definitely larger. Now, when we look at it in overall width, definitely wider as well. So depending on what your needs are, what you're trying to do, I mean, obviously for me personally, I would carry 9mm as a carry gun, but you may, or if you're the certain type of person that wants a slightly larger firearm and wants to carry 22, you could do it. Now, I do think you're going to be limited in terms of your overall holster options. I actually don't even have a holster for this currently right now. Tons of aftermarket support for the 365, tons of aftermarket support for the 320, but the 322 at this point is still limited. So a lot less options out there, and especially when you start adding on a weapon light. So if you're somebody that wants a weapon light on your 22, you can certainly do that. This does have a standard 1913 pick rail, which would adapt to a number of different firearms. I like that way better than the proprietary rail that you get on the 365 and 365 XL. This does get in the way, and in my opinion, really did set this model back. Of course, they've made some changes with the X macro that does allow more of the 1913 rail. But in this particular case, still for me, I am stuck with that proprietary rail. So the 322, really a much better option in terms of the overall sort of features that they outfit this with. In terms of the sights, you have fairly nice and pretty standard, yet really suitable fiber optic sights. They are adjustable, at least the rears are adjustable for both elevation and windage. The front sights are kind of fixed. They're not dovetailed. That's another thing when you look at like the 365 and 365 XL. They are dovetailed, which allows you to adjust them for windage. You cannot do that with the 322. But the fact that you can adjust the rears might come into play. Now, again, with my initial testing, I felt as though things were off from the factory. It's not the case. I'm just not shooting this very well quite yet. I'll get there. I'm still a little bit inaccurate, and it is not, in my opinion, due to the sights. But what I do really like is the fact that they're open on top, which makes them extremely bright. When you sight down the slide and through the sights, these are quite bright and very easy to pick up. So I do like these. I like the fact that they're blacked out all the way around and the nice bright green dots. I know everybody's going to have their own opinions, but I think these do work very well and I think they're nice. I like the fact that the tops are open. They take in a lot of light and they do make these very bright. Now the slide is cut and optics ready. That is going to be something that I might experiment with. I might not. It just depends. But remember what I said. I already said this is a great handgun for a reviewer because I can test optics, because I can test different lights, because I can add things to this and not break the bank while I test them, not break the bank while I try them out or get them dialed in and start to gain impressions. I mean, a lot cheaper to shoot 22 with a fully featured handgun than 9mm. Not that 9's all that expensive, but you're still talking about a fraction of the price. And as somebody who's been shooting a lot, I can tell you it's going to add up quickly. So, I mean, I'm putting a few hundred rounds every week downrange. I mean, a few hundred. That adds up quick. And of different calibers, trust me when I tell you, I mean, some weeks I'm spending well over $100 in ammo. That adds up fast. And, well, I don't know about you, but I don't really have expendable income to go throwing around at ammo that I'm just going to bury into a dirt berm. So having some 22 to allow me to test things out on this handgun, that is awesome. Takedown and disassembly, very simple, as easy as literally flipping over this lever, pulling the slide back a little bit further than necessary, and for cleaning and ease of maintenance, that does allow you to do that quite simple. So very easy. Now you can strip this down a little bit further without too much difficulty, and then you get to the point where you got to start knocking out pins and really paying attention. But generally speaking, pretty simple. Again, to put this back, you pretty much pull it beyond where it needs to go. It takes me a second actually to find the little groove. But with a little bit of practice, it's not terribly difficult. You just pretty much need to get everything perfectly aligned. There you go. So very simple, easy, fairly easy to maintain. Now I haven't stripped this down and cleaned it yet. I am going to be checking this for fouling. Keep in mind, if you do a lot of research on the 322, at this point, you'll see a lot of people talking about lead fouling. Now, I am intentionally shooting unjacketed ball ammo through this. I want to see what happens. So no jacket on the actual tip of the bullet, basically just straight lead to see whether or not I get fouling. That was a problem with early models. At the time of this video, I'm going to call mine, it should be a slightly newer copy. This has been out well over a year at this point. So I don't know if they've made any adjustments, but I guess we'll wait and see. As we take a look at the case, so getting into this here, this does actually come with 2 magazines. So I have 2 10-round magazines. Yay, limited capacity state. Yay, awesome. But it does come with a little bit of a speed loader. Now the magazines are fairly nice. They're a nice quality polymer. They have this traveler, which does allow you to pull this down as you load. Now you'll see when we get into my shooting footage, I did do a test to basically pull this all the way down, load it, and see what happened. And the round rounds do go snaggletooth, and they do have a sort of failure to feed. So in other words, what you really want to do is just take the pressure just a little bit off of the opening, get your bullet down and inside in each round, load it in, and then you can kind of pull this down just a little bit between rounds. Or I also found I was able to maintain spring pressure without too much difficulty. But the nice thing about the 22 is ease for a kid. Again, try, or I would say just somebody who maybe is not quite as strong. So this did give me the ability to allow my son to easily load this, no problem. And the other thing is it's fairly light to rack, which was awesome. So he had the ability to rack this, very simple, no problem. And again, load the magazine. So that was definitely cool. As we take a look at all the rest of the goodies on the inside, so here you can see the foam inserts. You get your Sig Sauer sticker. You get your basic user's manual. Free 200 round ammo pack when you join the USCCA. A lock, chamber flag, and here, a swappable trigger. So if you don't like the flat trigger, you can easily swap out to the curved trigger. Now, I'm not going to do that. I really don't want the curved trigger at all. I love the flat trigger for a number of reasons, but to me, this is the way to go, so I'm just going to leave it at this. You also have the ability to add a threaded barrel adapter, which at this point I don't need to do, but I may do that in the future for various reasons. I kind of doubt it. I doubt it, but at least I have it if I need it, so that's cool. Now, one thing I did want to test real quick is the weight on the trigger pull. So I have a real basic trigger pull scale here. And as we get this on and into place, so just making sure everything's reset nicely on the trigger here. Going to get a good firm grip and an even pull. And it breaks at just a little over 4 pounds. So this is telling me here I am at 4¼ pounds, pretty darn close. Let's do that once more. So again, trying to get this properly in place. There you go. That time it was more like 3.75. Law of averages here. Again. There you go. That was 4 pounds. So law of averages says a 4 pound trigger pull. Which now, making sure my 365 is clear. So at this point, just for the comparison, 4 pounds on the 322 versus, there you go, 5¼ pounds on the 365. Let's do it again. There you go. That was closer to 6. I don't necessarily trust that. Let's try it one more time. This is always a little bit difficult. There you go. That was better. More like 5 pounds. I'll do that one final time just for posterity. 5 pounds. So yes, 5 pounds on the P365 versus 4 pounds on the 322. So again, remember, great for a training tool and really aiding in the ability for somebody to get started who may not be familiar with firearms or is not quite as strong. And so before we wrap this up, just a couple of final details. This does have the sort of same ambidextrous magazine release, which is nice. They do seem to drop out nicely. I'll cover that more in detail at a later time. And this also has an ambidextrous safety. So as we rack this here, you can see getting that safety up and into place. So the fact that it has a safety, great for training, great for somebody who's not quite as familiar with firearms. I was using this with my son, getting everything loaded and ready and having him come up onto target, and then I was able to release the safety. So good and safe for a training tool, just absolutely awesome. So the Sig P322, I am just pumped to have this in my collection. And so again, moving forward, I will have much more to come. Number of various ideas that I have for conversations with this 322. Shooting footage, some diagnostics, a couple of different things that I'm going to get into, some maintenance, and all the good things that come with quality firearms ownership. And so, all right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you for following along. And if you like this content, do me a favor, take a look at my Outer Limitless channel, which is more on my primary gear. On that channel, I cover everything from hiking, camping, and backpacking excursions, all the gear that goes with it. So from sleep systems, shelter systems, knives, axes, backpacks, flashlights, you name it. That's my Outer Limitless YouTube channel. So all right, guys, thanks for stopping by. I hope you like what you saw. I hope you found it a little bit informative. If you like what you saw, please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Take care now. I'll see you soon.